Welcome to On Texas Football. It's time for Rapid Reaction. Each Sunday, we talk to you early Sunday morning about what we saw from the previous day's game. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel of On Texas Football. Rapid Reaction brought to you every week by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. Gerry and CJ, Longhorns dominate 52-0. Key takeaways that I wanted to talk about today were some of the things that we talked about in the preseason, and whether or not Texas actually addressed them, how it looked, was it better, worse, etc. I thought that would be a great starting point for our rapid reactions video. We talked about, let's start with Quinn Ewers. We talked about whether or not he would be improved in year 3. I thought I saw a better Quinn Ewers out there, more confident, spread the ball a lot more than just the A.D. Mitchell, J.T. Sanders, and Xavier Worthy like he did last year. I thought he was the leader of the offense, ran the offense really, really well, led teams on scoring drives except for his very first possession of the season. Pretty good outing for the young man from South Lake. What did y'all think?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought he moved a little better in the pocket, right? A little earlier movement, quicker with the feet in the pocket, feeling the pressure. But look, the reason I was impressed was, Jonte Cook's the only player on the receiver corps that had caught a pass as a Texas Longhorn. So he's working with a total new group, the total opposite of last year's first game. And he had a better performance today than he did last year against Rice. Now, Rice was probably a better football team than Colorado State, but he still played at a higher level today. And he had 3 drops, too. His receivers had 3 drops. Jaden Blue had a couple. Isaiah Bond, catchable footballs. You could argue Bond, but that was a pretty good throw. 2 hands on a ball. Even if you have to contort your body as a catcher, probably should come down with if you're a first-round pick, right? So I thought Quinn played at a very high level today. He was very accurate. Bobby, CJ, I thought it was interesting how Colorado State played Quinn. They were giving him the intermediate game, which is interesting because that's his strength.
Yeah.
They didn't make him throw the ball deep down the sidelines one time in this game. I thought it was interesting how Colorado State played him from a position of fear of the speed at Texas, but that speed at Texas is real.
CJ, what improvements or things that he didn't maybe do as much as you maybe wanted in Quinn Ewers' first game of the season on Saturday?
Yeah, a couple things. Late Saturday night as I'm watching the Ole Miss highlights and I'm watching some Alabama highlights, and I'm sitting there thinking, you see Dart, you see Milrow, they're hucking the ball deep. I think back, you didn't really see that a whole lot with Ewers and Sark. And I know that they're trying to limit the offense, right? You don't want to show too much too early. I understand that. But, to Gerry's point, we know how good Quinn Ewers is inside, 20 to 10 to 5 yards. He'll put the ball on the money almost every time, right? That's kind of his MO inside 20 yards. And so looking back, I thought that played exactly into how Sarkisian and Texas wanted to go about this offensive game plan for the season opener, and it certainly did, right? We saw the rhythm that they got into, after the first quarter, some of that late starts, they cleaned it up. There weren't as many pre-snap penalties, right? Jake Majors, I know he kind of slipped up a little bit earlier in that game yesterday, but again, it wasn't an issue. Penalties weren't an issue. Texas stayed ahead of the chains when they were rolling, and when Ewers was distributing the football in the manner that he was, it put on tape, in my eyes, a very difficult offense to defend for defensive coordinators. Who do you key in on? It was Isaiah Bond who had 7 targets, but it was Matthew Golden who had 2 touchdowns. And of course, you saw the big run from Gunnar Helm after the catch. You saw the targets to Jaden Blue. We can talk about the drops and the issues there, but 6 targets out of the backfield gives you an idea of how Sarkisian wants to use him long term. I thought the distribution of the football was as well of a orchestrated attack that Quinn Ewers has had at Texas, rather than dropping back and saying, all right, where's my number 1? I got to go to him.
That's exactly what I was getting at, because last year it was Worthy, Mitchell, or J.T. Sanders. Even Whittington did not get that many receptions overall. It was a 3-man passing attack. Maybe they would hit Jonathan Brooks on the throwback, right, to open up a big play. My point in saying that to you guys is I think that's part of what the progression now we've seen of Quinn Ewers. He is now the leader of the offense. He's not a support role, even though he was the quarterback a year ago. He's the one they're actually leaning on right now, which I think is big piece of the puzzle. All right, we went into this last year thinking, hey, is the secondary going to be? Are they going to improve on the 110th best group? Colorado State yesterday didn't pass for 100 yards. Now, we could say that's because of the Texas pass rush. Texas didn't get any sacks. So is Jahdae Barron moving to corner? Is Jalen Gilbo insertion at star? Is Gavin Holmes insertion at corner? Garrick Williams, Andrew Makuba? Is that just a better secondary that we're looking at now? Which on the surface, I got to be honest, it looks better to me. It played better. And I know Colorado State's not the greatest team Texas will play this year, but I think they addressed it. And in this instant, our rapid reaction, CJ, I'm going to go to you first. What did you see in the secondary that made you confident? Because I think that's what we all should be, that this secondary is kind of different this year than a year ago.
Yeah, definitely. I thought coming into this game, this would be the game in which you looked at the pass rush and saw, immense improvement from 2023. And you really didn't. And I'm not saying the pass rush was bad, but no sacks, right? There was pressure, but not many times in which the quarterback was in his motion getting hit. It was the secondary. There weren't busts. There weren't guys running wide open down the sideline or in the secondary. How about this? 2 passes were completed on Saturday that extended beyond 10 yards. That's tremendous. Texas did a very good job of breaking passes up at the point of attack. Michael Taft on the 4th down, Manny Muhammad on the 3rd down previously. They were playing the football very well. That interception by Jahdae Barron, you could argue, was the play of the day. His guy on the boundary, he was left in no man's land. He was a decoy. What did he do? He looked for work. He scanned the field and immediately bolted backward to the guy running the post. Made a tremendous interception. That's for folks that are playing the college football game. I mean, that's one of the glitches that makes you throw the controller. It's not one of those interceptions that you see very often, right? It was a tremendous play. Wardell Mack. I mean, even the freshman, you see the guys getting into the game, making plays on the ball. And again, you talk about the pass rush and that secondary and the way that you can play that complementary defense to your offense. If your defense against the pass is looking like this, that makes those 20-point deficits for opponents seem like they're 40 points, because then it's much more difficult to move the ball. And also the other note I wanted to add is if your backup quarterback is the second leading passer in a game, things normally end up going pretty well for you.
Arch Manning was indeed the second best passer. Gerry, your thoughts on the secondary?
Yes, a little bit incomplete for me. I liked what I saw. Now it's an air raid team, so it's not a team that can really truly concerns you running the ball downhill against you, then can play off of that, right? Like a Kentucky or a Georgia. So a little incomplete, but I will say this. The play Jahdae Barron made, and I hate to do this, I'm not taking a shot at Terrence Brooks. That's not a play Terrence Brooks would have made. And that's already a major difference right there at the cornerback position, because that ball last year probably would have been completed over the top, because obviously the receiver Horton's a really good player. Manny Muhammad is a great corner, but Makuba took a bad angle, as Rod Baber said last night on that play. Last year, that ball's probably completed for a 50-yard gain, but Jahdae Barron made an unbelievable play coming from the other side corner spot. His athletic and football instincts took over there, and he made a play that wasn't made last year. So right there, that's a good sign. Obviously, I think Makuba is an upgrade. Taft's older. Derek Williams is older. Derek Williams can really play the run. Gavin Holmes is a better football player than he was a year ago. Manny Muhammad is a better football player in year 2 than year 1. That's when you make big jumps. So I like what I've seen. A bit incomplete for me, but I do like what I've seen. And the good thing for Texas in the secondary is I'm not sure how many teams that are really going to be high-level throwers of the football Texas plays this year. They're going to play some really good athletes, Barry and Brown. Georgia's got some guys, some pretty talented quarterbacks. But how many teams can really stress Texas throwing the football on this schedule? I mean, we watched A&M last night. It ain't them.
Whoops. That's what I got to say about that one last night. I want to add this about the Texas secondary. when's the last time you saw 2 interceptions as nice as what we saw yesterday?
Yeah,
I mean, those were both really nice interceptions from that group. All right, before we go further, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Each and every rapid reaction in the football season is brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. Thank you to Adam for his group sponsoring us each and every week here on the Rapid Reaction Show. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, make sure you give Adam and his firm a call over and the loweylawfirm.com. He's got 20 plus years experience. Again, Adam Lowy at loweylawfirm.com. A good guy will help you out. Free consultation, no strings attached if you've been injured in a car wreck. All right, another long sought after thought process, or whatever you want to talk about it. Can Texas stop the run? Can they replace Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, and can they do it with a group of players as opposed to 2 big-time guys? I thought they looked pretty good against the run, even though Colorado State's guys did rush for 100-plus yards on the game. I thought Texas kept Colorado State's run game off schedule. And when it was 3rd and short, there were a couple times where Anthony Hill or David Benda laid a dude out. That was a big impact on 3rd down. Yeah, I felt like Texas handled the run fairly well. I mean, 30-some-odd attempts or 40 attempts? You only get 120 yards. I mean, what y'all think about Texas's ability to stop the run? This comes in and is extremely important because the Longhorns go to Ann Arbor next week, and then we know we're going to see that run-heavy offense at times in the SEC. Gerry, you go.
Yeah, so incomplete for me on that. Look, this is going to be one of the worst rushing teams, offensive lines Texas plays this year in terms of their talent versus Texas talent. Bottom line, I mean, we got to be real about this. So, but I think Texas has some games they will play, some things they will do to slow down the run game against better opponents. But I will say this, you did see the difference in this game. Texas was vanilla, but last year Texas could play vanilla and dominate against the run. Justin Marshall would have had 30 yards last year. So there is a difference this year. They're going to have to game it up a little bit more against the run. It's last year they could just line up and you knew Murphy and Sweat were going to dominate up front and they were going to stop the run. That's not going to be the case by itself in a vanilla defense this year. They're going to have to game it up a little bit more. And I'm not saying Colorado State, the kid's not a good back. He's a good back. He's probably going to rush for 1,000 yards if he stays healthy in that conference. But what I am going to say is he's not the best back they're going to play. It's not close to the best offensive line Texas is going to play. But I do think, again, the one thing about the D-line position, it's almost like the wide receiver position for me. How much better can they get over the course of the season? Because they have so many new faces on that defensive line that are new to the Texas scheme. Bill Norton. I mean, they played Arizona, Savea, Jermaine Lole, and Alex January. Sadir didn't play much last year. Aaron Bryant's played a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, so there's some room for growth on that position. As the season moves along. I thought Alfred Collins looked really good. I think Vernon Burton is a really good disruptor. This week, they're going to be tested a little differently.
Hey, CJ, I want to ask you about the wide receiver group. And the reason I go there is because we were talking about at the outset here. It felt like to me, at least, that the Longhorns on Saturday I was waiting to see who's that breakout star. Is it going to be Isaiah Bond, Silas Bolden? We had heard had a great fall camp. Matthew Golden had developed a rapport with Quinn. Ryan Wingo is supposed to be, coming on, etc. But we felt like there might be one dude that kind of stood out. Was there one dude, or was it just a bevy of receivers? And is that how it's going to end up this year? Because I'll tell you right now, Isaiah Bond looked good. I mean, to get your head torn off and then make a touchdown catch, great catch. Matthew Golden looked really good, and particularly in the red zone. That rapport definitely looked like it was there with Quinn Ewers. Ryan Wingo looked like a freak. I was right? I mean, so what is the receivers? Are we looking at a year where 4 or 5 guys might have 40 catches? Something like that? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see for me when Sarkisian dials up the big play, who does that go to, right? You kind of anticipate that to be an Isaiah Bond because of his speed. You anticipate that to be a guy like Ryan Wingo because of his frame and his big catch ability. We didn't see that today. We didn't see that on Saturday, right? We didn't see that against Colorado State. And so as a result of that, it's more that underneath kind of intermediate in which I think it's a little easier to dial up certain plays to get certain guys looks. I'll tell you what, I was very surprised to look at halftime and see the stats and see Silas Bolden was shut out. Very surprised. And I had gone on record. I'd put it on Twitter. I put it on a couple shows here, Bobby. I said, listen, I thought this was a guy that could lead Texas in receptions. I think he still can. But to see that, he didn't have a target, he didn't have a reception, I was like, okay, it doesn't matter because Texas still has 31 points on the board and there's not been any snags in the red zone. They're still finding success. And so I think long-term, you're going to see that continued distribution of the football between a Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond and whoever else wants to get into the party, right? We saw Gunnar Helm have a nice little catch and run for a career-high, career-long reception. I mean, I didn't think he had that kind of wiggle in him after the catch. That was impressive. We didn't see much about Amari Niblack. We saw some Juan Davis, but because you have so many weapons, I think it tends to open up that playbook so much more for Sarkisian to be creative, to find different routes. I love that route concept for Isaiah Bond in the corner of the end zone. Put him on an island, allow him to get that inside release, break it off at the post, and then come back, fight for the corner, and he's wide open. That was an easy touchdown that a day 1, day 2 wide receiver should have at all times. As a result, Bobby, I do think we're looking at a year in which you see 3, maybe 4 guys with 40, 50 catches. I think that's a lot to say, but with the way that we saw it distributed on Saturday, it makes sense right now. But when that playbook opens up and you see the long ball be implemented a little bit more, I think that's when you start to see an Isaiah Bond maybe start to separate just a little bit.
Well, I mean, you look at it, 4 receivers had 3 catches or more. Times that by 13 games, you get 35 plus at least, and that doesn't even count. Jaden Blue had 3 himself.
Yeah, should have had more
on Saturday.
One of my big takeaways was outside of the who's and the catches and the plays is how Colorado State played Texas. That was seriously scared of Texas speed, the way Colorado State played Texas. Because Quinn, if I'm playing against Quinn, I want him to hit a couple of deep shots down the sidelines against me. Colorado State clearly did not want to get beat over the top in this game. That showed a sign of respect for the Texas speed without facing all those guys on the field in a Texas uniform. That's a really good sign for the Texas receiver corps long term this year.
I had 2 more. This is good stuff because actually I had 2 more comments that I want to bring up before we get to some player of the game type stuff, plays of the game. I had speed as a comment, like the overall team speed. Yeah. We talked about how we thought it would be maybe Sark's fastest team. I think it is.
No doubt.
Not only look, Jonathan Brooks is plenty fast, but Jaden Blue is faster. Trey Wisner is quote-unquote faster. Isaiah Bond's fast enough, right? Ryan Wingo's fast enough. They got good wide receivers. They got tight end. They may be faster than JT Sanders.
Yes.
I mean, even there, right? And so, and that's not including the defense that where Jaron Thompson wasn't very fast. Jalen Ford, good player, wasn't necessarily real fast, right? Smart player, but not real fast. Some of those things, I mean, Texas has improved its speed. So that was one. The second one I wanted to talk to y'all about was red zone. Did we not talk all off season about red zone efficiency? 7 for 7 in red zone. CJ, you're sitting there smiling. I'm going to let you talk about it, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I called it. I wanted to say that we called it, but it felt like the writing was on the wall for the red zone to be looking like this, right? I go back to when when third down defense was atrocious in 2022. And what did they do all off season? We talked about how can Texas get off the field on 3rd and 4th downs, and what did they do? They turned into the best 3rd down defense in all of the country right there with Georgia, right? And I'm not saying that Texas is now going to become the best red zone offense, but when that much emphasis and that much noise has been made about one certain deficit in your team, you're going to overreact and you're going to find ways to improve on it. And we saw it today. Texas, especially in some of those running situations, Bobby, I thought that looked completely different than what we saw a year ago, right? Obviously, the touchdowns to Golden and Bond, they kind of stole the show because it was Ewers in the first team in the first half. But that touchdown in which Jarrett Gibson was pulled into the end zone by Cam Williams and that rest of that offensive line rallying around him, kind of stood up on the 2-yard line. You didn't see that last year. You didn't see that at least end up in the end zone. You know, you didn't see 4 hats circle back around to push the wagon across the line. I thought that was a point of emphasis that we had heard about this offseason, and to see them go 7 for 7. I mean, what more could you ask for there? That was really impressive. I very pleased with the red zone offense, as should everybody else.
Yeah. All right, got a question for you guys. I've got some small questions here in this rapid reaction piece. Play of the game for y'all. I'm going with Jahdae Barron also, Jerry. Good point. I thought that interception was like, oh boy, we got a smart team, or at least a smart player on this team, because as Rod, if you haven't seen Rod Baber's description in the post-game show, it was absolutely astounding. It was like a clinic of what Jahdae Barron did on that play that 95 or 99% of other DBs just can't do. And I thought that was the play of the game for me. Gerry chose that as well. CJ, do you have any difference?
Yeah, no, it was Jahdae for me. If I could go a little contrarian, I think Silas Bolden was about a shoelace away from making a really impressive punt return there down the sideline. You know, that was impressive stuff as well. Wardell Mack, honorable mention.
You know, my honorable mention was Gavin Holmes getting on the muff punt. That look, the game was in hand, but that saved the shutout. That was a hustle play.
Yeah, Gerry, if I can add to that, Sarkisian talked about that in his press conference afterward. He said, listen, there were 2 big plays for me, and it kind of shows the effort and where we're at in the headspace from our locker room. It was diving on a ball on our own 5-yard line late in the game, in which that doesn't matter. We're up by 50, right? But you go out there, you put your body on the line to secure the shutout. And then obviously he also circled around to Wardell Mack making that interception late in the end zone. Yeah. Another really impressive play right there. But those were the 2 plays that he kind of circled on and said, late in the game, we're up by 50. It's out of hand. Why are we still trying this hard? Well, it's because they care, and this means something to them. So that's a little tidbit from Sark from his presser yesterday.
All right. Another question I'm going to ask you. Freshman of the day on Saturday.
Let
me tell you, before you even answer, I have an answer. Yep. But before you even, these are the guys that played: Jarrett Gibson, Ryan Wingo, Parker Livingstone, Jordan Washington, Brandon Baker, Alex January, Colin Simmons, Anthony Smith, Kobe Black, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, Wardell Mack, and Michael Kern. If I would have told you that that many true freshmen, I'm not just talking about redshirt freshmen, but that many true freshmen play, that would have been astounding. But I'm going to ask you this, okay? Who was the true freshman of the game for you guys? Gerry, I'll let you go.
Well, I'll save Ryan Wingo for you. And here's what I'm going to – so just so we're different, I'm going to go with Jarrett Gibson.
I think Jarrett deserves it also. I'm gonna say that.
And I say this, and I say the reason why, because the day Cedric Baxter went down, we knew Jarrett Gibson was going to have a big part of this offense at some point this year. And, I mentioned this. Kyle Flood said something so awesome, coach, that wasn't coach speak in his press conference for the season. I'm not sure if it was CJ or somebody asked about Jordan Whittington. He said, we can replace the production, but I'm not sure we can replace the player.
Yep.
And that's the feeling you get for Cedric Baxter. But I'm here to tell you what I saw from Jarrett Gibson Saturday. As he gets more comfortable, you can replace the rushing production of Cedric Baxter freshman year. Now, he was going to be a much better player year 2. He was getting compared to Edgerrin James in the building before this season. But you can, if you said, what did Cedric Baxter rush for 638 as a freshman? Jarrett Gibson can replace the production running the football in this scheme. The rest of it, we don't know. But he doesn't have to do it in the passing game because Blue and Wisner will do that. Jarrett Gibson is going to be a key piece to this team if they're going to run the ball well in the SEC. He's going to be a key piece to it. He showed a lot.
I'll say this. Hey, Gerry, he led the team in rushing yesterday, 10 for 67. And not only did he lead the team in rushing, he led in yards per attempt.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was highly effective when he went in. Had that. I love. I'll tell you another thing. An effort play that you talked about, and what Steve Sarkisian's talking about when he thinks he's got his team going in the right headspace. How about Cam Williams dragging him over the goal line?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the touchdown run from Jarrett Gibson. That's a team play,
Yeah.
and that game was well in hand at that time. Cam Williams could have taken that play off, and didn't do it. CJ, what did you think of the freshman? Anything other than Jarrett Gibson there? Somebody's got to tell me. You got to talk about Ryan Wingo and that move in the fourth quarter, buddy. Go for it.
I had three things. I had three adjectives for three different freshmen. I'll go quick here. First is certified for Ryan Wingo. He showed up. He did what we all thought he was going to do. 4 catches, 70 yards. We saw the wiggle after the catch. He looks like a future number one. He looks like a future all-SEC guy. The second is strong, and that's Jarrett Gibson. Again, I thought he ran the ball very strong. For when we kind of sit back and talk about the injuries to the running back room, who's going to be that short down enforcer back? I thought he looked the part today. It was impressive running by him. And then the other one was hidden, and I think this is kind of by design, but Colin Simmons. He was on the field a lot. You didn't see him very often making the plays in the backfield, but you did see him drop into coverage a little bit.
He did pretty good with that, CJ.
He did. The first time I actually noticed him on the field was him in the flats making a play immediately on the ball. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, hold on. This isn't what we were all expecting him to be. Texas is hiding him, obviously, like they did to Anthony Hill early on last year, for whenever it's his time to kind of pin his ears back and get after the quarterback. They're going to see 11 on tape. They're going to notice him on tape, opposing offenses, but it's going to be different the next time that he's on the field in that situation. Those were my three adjectives for those three freshmen. I think moving forward, Texas has three really good options in this freshman class, among many others.
Yeah, they did. I mean, we were talking in post game. They're stacking classes. This is what stacking classes looks like, right?
It's notable.
Yeah.
It's why it's the fastest team Sark's had. This is 3 straight top 5 level recruiting classes and being a blue blood in the portal. That's why it's the fastest team Sark's had, and he's never had any hesitation with that.
Yeah, it's very true. I want to say this also, another little nuance or thought. Trey Wisner was the short yardage back.
Yeah.
Did anybody see that coming? Did any? I didn't even hear about it from behind the scenes.
I think it's twofold. Look, I don't think with the injuries that Texas has already had at running back position, I don't think you're going to see Sark game in, game out, if he gets inside the 10, just pound Jaden Blue up the middle. I don't think that's where he's going to go because Jaden Blue is too valuable. Even if you could have handed him the ball in the same play Wisner scored on, Jaden Blue probably scores too, right? But I don't think that's what Sark wants to do with Jaden Blue. I don't think he wants to get inside the 10 and turn around and hand the ball off to him 2 or 3 times in a row. So I think there's a piece to it of that until Jarrett Gibson gets comfortable. But I think Trey Wisner is a really good red zone back for Texas. But again, could this change as Jarrett Gibson gets more comfortable? And he just kind of is a little bowling ball that hides behind the offensive line and then darts to the end zone. We'll see. But I think part of it is Jaden Blue, keeping him healthy, guys.
All right. I want to give away a defensive game ball. But before we do, want to say thank you one last time to our sponsor of the Rapid Reaction Show. That's Adam Lowy. Visit him at loweylawfirm.com. Adam's got a successful practice. He and his group there been serving Texans for more than 20 years. So if you've been injured in an automobile accident of any kind, car wreck, truck wreck, ATV, even golf cart, whatever it is, if you've been injured in a car wreck of any time, make sure you reach out to Adam and his group, loweylawfirm.com. Defensive game ball. You could give it to Anthony Hill. You could give it to Jahdae Barron. I thought Jalen Gilbo had an impact in the game. I'm going to tell you who I'm going to give mine to. That's David Benda.
Yeah.
Young man has fought through a lot to be a guy that gets on the field. Last year, he saw his role usurped by a little bit of a freak in Anthony Hill. You know, Benda was scheduled to start, but then they recruited this guy out of Denton that's just one of those guys that's going to play a lot as a true freshman, right? But David Benda, CJ, I thought played a whale of a game. He is what you want, is that we talk about development, man, with Sark. He had it, and I thought he played a great game on Saturday.
Yeah, I like the text that I got from one of my coaching buddies in the DFW area. He looks like a 6-year senior out there. And for him to take that step and to show up on the field, I think it's going to be very impactful for the Longhorn defense. That linebacking room in its entirety, I thought played tremendously. There were leaks at time with that defensive line in the run game. They had one rush over 10 yards in this entire game. So that to me is the linebacking core running quickly, diagnosing quickly, and getting the ball carrier down very quickly. Great sign for Michigan.
CJ, Gerry, what do you think about the possible game ball that you would give out on defense?
I'm going to go Jahdae Barron because here's the reason I say that. Twofold. One, he had the best play. That was a big play for Texas. But two, he transitioned from a nickel to a corner spot.
Yeah.
And that's not as easy as people think. And he doesn't really have a corner body, by the way. And he was out last year. He was injured a lot last year with the toe injury. But his football instincts, his awareness as a football player, I thought was really impressive today.
Yep, I hear you. I want to add this: a couple of guys in the stands or on the sidelines today. Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys, Tyreek Hill, Terrell Davis was there. He was there for Colorado State guys. Colt McCoy, a lot of former NFL guys in and around the program today that don't necessarily all have University of Texas ties. I thought that was good stuff there as well. All right, any last comments here on this rapid reaction before we let folks go? Gerry, I'll let you. You look like you're chomping at the bit a little bit.
Yeah, the tickle me Elko era is off and running. You notice I didn't say passing. It's off and running. But tough loss for the Ags last night. They were fired up. But, man, it's, Notre Dame got them in the end. Notre Dame actually ran the ball on them late in the game. Something to remember with A&M in the SEC, guys. And now they don't have the toughest schedule, but the tickle me Elko era is off and running, not passing.
They're lucky they weren't in Lubbock as Abilene Christian had 600-plus yards on a Texas Tech team and took them to overtime.
By the way, I want to give out my coaching game ball. Can I give out a coaching game ball?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dabo Sweeney, great job adjusting in college football with the times. That was extremely impressive what you've done in the last couple of years with the program. I mean, I'm very impressed. Way to adapt.
CJ, before we go off the wheels here, you have any thoughts about yesterday's game before we let people go?
I mean, you should just be very pleased if you're a Texas fan. 52-0 over a team that's not terrible, right? They do score points. They didn't obviously showcase a whole lot of offensive firepower. I think that's more to the secondary and the defense in its entirety, not letting them get into a rhythm. 52-0, you got to be pleased with that. Great sign. And also, hey, Michigan looked very beatable week 1 against Fresno State, in which it was a 17-10 game with about 8 minutes left in the fourth. So,
yeah, Michigan started a walk-on quarterback and then rotated in Ashton Orji. Neither one of them looked like world beaters. Michigan defense does look pretty good, though.
Hey, we'll be breaking down the game all week, but I'm here to tell you, we've been talking all summer. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. This game's all about Josiah Stewart next week. Texas will have to block him off the edge. That dude's a bad mother.
Yeah, got you. All right, hey, we'll get going. We've got offensive grades coming later today, as well as defensive grades. May have more stuff as news arise. One of the better things that we didn't even mention, guys, I don't think Texas suffered a real injury on the side.
Nope.
That's a good thing going into
closest thing to it was a Jaden Blue cramp, so good news.
Good day.
That'll do it for this morning's rapid reactions. Brought to you by our friend Adam Lloyd. For Gerry Hamilton, CJ Vogel, as well as our producer Matt Etchison, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good Sunday. Hook 'em.